Oh, hello. You just caught me flicking through a folder. Hello, welcome back to the attic with me, Lou. Yeah, it's been over a month since I posted a video. I did actually attempt to film something last week about the OC, of all things. So I'd never finished watching the OC. I'd seen pretty much all of it, and then I decided to watch the rest of season 4 very recently, and it's wacky, but I loved it. It was a hoot. I felt so enthusiastic about it, in fact, that I thought I could make a video about it. It was the hottest day of the year. My allergies were out of control, so I was effectively off my tits on hay fever medication, and it was terrible.
Previously on the OC.
Good. Ooh, it's moist back here. I'm gonna have to open the window. I had it open and then I shut it. I'm sweating my arse off. It's hot. It's hay fever season, baby. And the pollen count is through the roof. I finished watching. Oh, gosh. So many drugs. What is it I love about the OC? Do I love the OC? Do I like the OC? What is it that draws me in? Sandy comment, yes. Like, I feel like I know him. You know? I don't know the guy. I feel like I do. I feel like he would let me in and smear my bagel. That sounds filthy. Yeah, it was really bad. Just a mess, for lack of a better phrase. So we're gonna ignore that one, bury that one, pretend that didn't happen. Onwards and upwards. So today I'm going to be talking about a film that was briefly mentioned in another episode, an early episode, where I discussed a trilogy of action films that I'd written in my teens that was effectively a rip-off of everything that I was really into at the time. If you haven't seen it, and that sounds like something that would really appeal to you, the link will be below. If you have already seen it, but you want a little refresher, obviously watch it. But today I'm going to be talking about an action film called Broken Glass. The subject matter of this film is actually a little bit controversial given the current situation that we find ourselves in. So if this turns out to be like offensive or upsetting in any way, shape or form, that's not my intention at all today. Just want to throw that out there just in case. But hopefully everyone will find it humorous more than anything. So yes, Broken Glass. The world can stop for one moment, but one moment can't stop the world. Here's the basic outline of Broken Glass. This was written on a typewriter. I moved on from Comic Sans because I wanted to be taken seriously, you know, so I could make loads of spelling mistakes but feel really satisfied with what I was typing. Okay, so in a nutshell, the story is, and I swear to God this is the story, the President of the United States wants to create a pure world. He wants to cleanse his country. So he gathers all the essential workers, emergency services, into this huge bunker in this nondescript city that the film takes place in. They're kept safe with their families. In the meantime, unbeknownst to the world, he releases this potent gas into the cities. It's like an acidic gas, so it chokes everyone and then it kind of just burns all trace of the person. So there's nothing left. So everyone is gone in one fell swoop. In the meantime, there is a group of 4 people, 4 different characters who are in the same shopping mall at the same time. They're not connected except for 2 of the characters, but they're not connected specifically. But they find themselves in an elevator at the time that the gas is released. The elevator actually gets stuck between floors. So what happens to them is that the gas actually can't penetrate into the space that they're confined in because there's little to no airflow. The 4 of them kind of like briefly bond in this small space, only to realize when they get out that the mall is empty and they're the only people in there. They don't know why, they don't know what's going on, but it's just suddenly empty. So obviously the president knew that this would be an issue that might have happened in various places, so he's assigned SWAT teams to check the city for survivors and kill them. So a SWAT team descend upon the shopping mall, and it's kind of like a fight for survival. So the main characters who are trapped in the elevator are Titus, Quartz, Drew, and Ethan. And if you've seen the other video, then those names will ring a bell, because yes, I just took those characters that I'd already written and plopped them into a new situation. Drew and Ethan are the siblings, so they've got like this kind of banter going on the whole time. She's just smoking in the corner and moaning about shit and just being like a generic don't fuck with me badass. And then Quartz is just the pink-haired heroine that I wanted to re-include because I liked her. Titus is just like an emo boy who doesn't really say much. He actually turns out to be a ex-police officer or something. So somehow he knows about the plan. He knows about the president's plan. I just didn't think he was going to do it. I think I'd use the president because there was the series of Buffy with the mayor of Sunnydale. And there was always like the big baddie. And so I was like, well, who's a really powerful figure in America and in the world? So I just wrote the president. I didn't ever think like that would be a presidently thing to do. There's obviously an evil dictator impression that I'm giving. I was never implying that the president of the United States would be that kind of person, but hey, this film would never get made. So a SWAT team would descend upon my house if I tried to make this film, I'm sure. So the SWAT team were kind of like a combination of the Navy SEALs from The Rock and the Space Marines from Aliens. And there's like the one female, Sarah, who obviously was subject to the male jokes. And she turns out to be the one that outlived them all, obviously. The setting of them all seemed genius at the time to me because it's one location, but there's a lot to it. And the fact that you can get loads of different supplies from different shops. You could get weapons, you could get survival items, you could get food, clothing. Everything's there that you need it. There's elements of the Kyle Reese arrival in Terminator. There's elements of Dawn of the Dead. There was also a TV drama that I was obsessed with when I was younger. It was a BBC thing, and it was called The Greatest Store in the World. And it was like set in a Hamleys style shopping centre called Scott Lee's, and a woman and her 2 kids had been evicted or something, and so they were kind of hiding out there over Christmas. That was nothing to do with violence and survival, but that's where I kind of got that idea from. I also thought, it's called Broken Glass. Where would you find a lot of broken glass? So the structure of the film was predominantly based off of who do I want to survive, what do I want to happen at the end, and how can I make this happen? So basically it was just sequence after sequence of fighting. And there was one point where the 4 survivors actually found a survivor, and she was all like burnt, and it was quite dark. This wasn't a horror film, but it was morbid. I think the burning gas thing was stolen from The Rock. There's like the little green balls that look like little bath bombs. That was always terrifying when I watched that when I was younger, because this tiny little thing, if it breaks, is going to release this gas that is going to fuck you up. And also the whole corroding the body away so that there's no trace left. I just took that from Logan's Run, of all films. Yeah. Here's some concept art. There's Titus walking in the rain. There was a lot of rain at the end of this film. Titus and Quartz arguing. What do we do? Hugging it out. Oh God, what do we do? And there's the post-apocalyptic landscape. There's some helicopters, shining lights. I love a visual guide me. Yeah. So I actually started like almost storyboarding the whole film. So there's the titles in the sky. There's the nondescript city. There's like the characters watching the president talking on TV. So I literally had started the story in a comic format almost. There's someone choking. Ooh, that's nasty. But yeah, so that's how seriously I was taking this project. So I'd storyboarded some of the action sequences. There's one action sequence where Drew, one of the survivors, gets shot in an elevator. So that's her like tapping the button as the SWAT man's coming for her. The doors are not closing, and then he's gaining on her, and then the doors close, and then She leans back with a sigh of relief, and then ding, oh no, the door's open. Oh, the SWAT man's there. Bang, he shoots her. Graphic, but powerful. And I thought I was being so original with that idea. With the doors of the elevator like and then closing and then ding, bang. I thought that was original, but turns out it's not. There was a song that I wanted to use at the end by a band called Hope of the States, and it was called the Black Amnesias. Listen to that song and you will know the tone that I was going for. It's intense, man. So I've got here like a storyboard almost of Quartz walking home, Quartz entering the house, like all this stuff. I'd literally done it, and here is the time codes for when in the song it would happen. That's how specific I was getting with this shit. I don't know who I was going to pitch this to. I've got various different drafts of this story. So this was handwritten here. And then I've got another one which is typed in a font that I don't think this is Comic Sans. When I realized that the Broken trilogy was too hammy, this is what I wrote in regards to this. There are no gentlemen, there are cops, or SWATs after them. There is only 4 in the group. It is not funny, it is a serious film. I say that, but I've got one of my ideas at one point was that Ethan gets killed by a chainsaw. So use as little slow motion as possible. It's been done before. No more Matrix style jackets. It's been done before. In the initial draft, which is handwritten, we open with soaring through the sky to the music Just Push Play by Aerosmith. Track number 2. Of course, it had to be Aerosmith. The letters broken glass fade through the clouds. It is when the drums bang in the song that elements of the writing shatter like glass. That's not what it says, I'm just making it sound more coherent. And then the camera, or what we're seeing, would smash through the rest of the font and take you through the city to the music. Everything I did at this point was very music heavy. I would hear songs and then think of ideas because of the songs. So yeah, so eventually the camera goes through the city and we are introduced to the different characters, and then the president's speaking to his country, and he's like, I want a perfect country. That means more doctors, firefighters, and policemen. I will make this a better world. Oh God. It's actually started raining. Quick. Play Hope of the States for me. I'm one of them people, I like to listen to intense music when it's raining because I like to walk through the rain thinking that I'm like a character in a film like this. This is the typed version. I don't know which one came first, if I'm totally honest, but here the president says, I said I wanted more doctors and firemen, and God damn it, I meant it. Only those 2 things specifically. You are going to be the only people left in this excuse for a country, and you will pass on your privileged genes to your children and your children's children. If any of you so much as think of helping any survivors, I will personally have you eliminated. Do I make myself clear? So that's him talking to the SWATs. Yeah, the president just keeps talking about not wanting people to contaminate his country. I think I saw into the future, guys. Meanwhile, in the mall, there are 4 people standing in an elevator. 2 of them are talking and the other 2 are in opposite corners. Suddenly, the lift comes to a halt. The woman in the corner says, oh shit, I bet it's a power cut or something. The man standing in the middle with his sister replies, I doubt it, otherwise the lights would have turned out. It's probably just some technical fault. It'll be okay. Everyone starts to call for help, but there's no reply whatsoever. A montage is shown to show time has elapsed. A woman in the corner has pink hair and an angular face. She looks at the man in the corner who has said nothing and says, you haven't said much. I mean, we've been in here for over half an hour and you haven't opened your mouth once. He slowly looks up. His eyes can just be seen through his scraggly dark hair, and he replies in a gruff voice, that's because I have nothing to say. The woman in the middle is wearing sunglasses and laughs. How cheery can you get? Because at first it was just a silent, creepy thing, but now you're making this day fun for everyone by giving her sass. Love the word sass. The man says nothing in return, so she looks at the pink-haired woman and asks her comfortingly, What's your name? The girl looks up at the stranger. It's Quartz. Yours? The woman takes off her sunglasses and answers, my name's Drew, and this is my brother Ethan. She puts her arm around him. At that moment, everyone looks at the mysterious man in the corner, expecting him to give his name, but he doesn't flinch. He remains so still, so calm. He looks as if he isn't breathing. I assure you he is. He's alive, don't worry. Drew gets a cigarette from her pocket, feels her jacket. Damn, has anybody got a lighter I could borrow? Quartz shakes her head and Ethan laughs. You know I don't even smoke. But the man in the corner tosses her one. My name's Titus. Drew lights the cigarette and ironically Titus tells her, you know that smoking kills. Drew breathes out the satisfying puff of smoke. Right now, I couldn't care less. If she knew what might have happened to her, she would have. I wrote that. I wrote that. And then I crossed that out. I crossed out if she knew what would happen, blah, blah, blah. And then I've corrected it. I've changed it. So now she asks him why he has a lighter if he's not smoking. And then he says about him, you know, for emergencies. So, you know, predictable banter between the four of them. Completely oblivious to what's happening. Oh, and then they help each other out through a vent in the roof. So they work as a team to get out. This, I've written and rewritten this. The red is all the corrections. So there's kind of like two different versions of this going on at the same time. So the general gist of the story, as mentioned, it's just a fight for survival in the shopping mall between the SWATs and the survivors. But by the end of it, the only two people to actually survive are Quartz and Titus. Confined situations and near-death experiences bring them together. So they realize that they're in love and they want to get away so they can live together and find out the truth of what happened. And then at the end, she's like, come on, we gotta go kill the president. We gotta go kill the president. And obviously it's raining. Titus is like, no, if we try that, we'll be killed for sure. Don't be an idiot. And she's like, I cannot rest until we've done this. And he's like, well, I cannot come with you. And it's supposed to be heartbreaking because you're like, oh, I was rooting for these kids. And then they go their separate ways. So there's Titus walking through the rain. He's lost everything. He's lost what could have been the love of his life. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, walking through the empty street, being pummeled by rain, just bouncing off his black jacket to the song Black Amnesias. I keep having to mention that because I feel like you need to listen to this song to appreciate what I was feeling in this moment. Meanwhile, you've got Quartz, who returns to her flat, her apartment. And again, it's empty, and she like looks at the pictures of her family and she breaks down into tears. And you're like, well, what happened to the president? And obviously she thinks she's killed the president because she looks at her hands and they're bloody. And that's how you know that someone's killed someone in films sometimes, because it tells you that they've got blood on their hands, both literally and metaphorically. So she's got the blood of the president on her hands. So it goes through the building where the president supposedly is. How Quartz knows where it is, I'm not quite sure. Titus probably told her. And then it pans through this building where the president should be. And it pans around his desk. And in the chair is a decoy. And it goes to outside the building where the president gets into yet another helicopter. And is like, we made it this time. And he soars off. And that was going to open me up for a sequel, Broken Glass 2 or something with an equally awesome name. More Broken Glass. Really struggling to think of puns today. Anyways, what films inspired Broken Glass? So, you know, in the notes I said that it was not meant to be a Matrix. So there's clearly some heavy Matrix inspiration going on here. You can strip the jackets, but the tone's still there. What can I say? Yeah, Dawn of the Dead. A lot of Terminator influence, specifically Terminator 1 and 2. Aliens was a heavy inspiration, not just because of the Space Marines and their dynamic, but also the fact that they're isolated in one location and kind of like banding together to try and defeat an outside threat. And there's probably a lot of vents. I feel like there were a lot of crawling through vents at some points. What else? The Rock. The Rock was a heavy inspiration. That was my main reference for like action films, I think, when I was younger. Perhaps that's why my dialogue was flawed, because I was always trying to get that kind of Nicolas Cage vibe going on. I was also influenced by like the Resident Evil games where it's a fight for survival and you have to like be resourceful, collecting materials, using things to defend yourself, solving puzzles. Buffy, there's a Buffy game on PlayStation 2 that had a level in a shopping mall. I actually think this would make a really good video game. Maybe take away some of the subject matter and replace it with something else, but like the overall idea of like the people in the mall, like that would work well. It's probably been done. I don't really play video games anymore. Post PlayStation 2, I don't really know too much about games, so it's probably been done now. But if it hasn't, don't steal it. Maybe there's still room for Broken Glass. Watch this space. So, you know, the Broken trilogy that I wrote that predated this, I started drawing the characters when I was about 12, and then I carried that on for a few years writing the stories and such, and then eventually by the time that I moved on to this, because this actually seemed like a more... Jesus Christ. Sorry, I'm just being attacked by a fly. No biggie. Thought the SWATs were after me for a moment. I think I was about 14 when I started coming up with the idea for this. I was probably about 17 when I actually packed it in completely. And just like most of the other projects, I didn't finish writing that one. I knew how it was going to end, but I never wrote the full shebang. I think you kind of, when you know that something's not going to work, there's just no need to carry on, is there? It just seems a bit silly. I cut my losses. Is that the phrase? I cut my losses. When I was younger, ideas would come flooding to me thick and fast, so I would have to just get them down on paper, and something else probably took priority over this. And yeah, never got finished. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, that was Broken Glass. Don't know what we're going to talk about next time, but it'll be something. I'll try and not keep it as long this time, but we shall see. Alrighty. Have a good day. And don't forget, broken glass is dangerous. Please don't touch it with your bare hand. Ow! Thank you for your time.